Does a great job covering the 76ers, both online, doing some color analyst work during the season. CSN Phillies Dei Lynam joins us here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN with some look at the Sixers. And Dei, a lot of stuff starting to circulate around this team, as I guess is to be expected.
Sure. Well, the closer the draft gets, the more speculation you will hear. And now that it's, 2 weeks away, it just starts to get interesting how much of it is real. I don't know. I've been around a lot of them. It's a lot of chatter that often doesn't result in much great movement, but we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, because of the situation that the Sixers have been in the last 3 years and what they now have at their disposal, do you anticipate a more fuller amount of rumors to try to diffuse this time around because they have so many big men and so many picks? Do you think that there will be a lot of stories that we're going to have to try to hash out from this team?
Well, I mean, let's just start. They're not going to trade their number one overall pick. That's just not going to happen. So they're going to take, in my opinion, it will probably end up being Ben Simmons. Ingram, I think, will go to the Lakers. Will they move one of the bigs, Okafor, Nerlens, the night of the draft? Possibly, but you don't have to do it then. You could wait and see what happens in free agency and see if you could fill some of your veteran needs and needs depending on how you draft. And when you say they have all these picks, I mean, the 24th and the 26th, I love the people who try to combine those and think you're going to get up into the 12 to 14 range. I just don't see it. I mean, the 24th and 26th pick, you are locked in for paying that guy the rookie scale for 3 years. And often you could get a guy like a Jeremy Grant or KJ McDaniels not far behind them that you do not have to be locked in for the same kind of money. So I'll be interested to see how they use 24 and 26. If they move them for something further down the line, or if you take somebody internationally that you don't have to bring over right now.
Dei, you mentioned Ben Simmons, and that's who you think they'll go with at the number one overall pick. Size him up for us and analyze him for us, good and bad.
Well, I mean, obviously the fact that he's 6'10" and can handle the ball is the thing that's so intriguing to people. And obviously when you see highlights of his passing abilities, he's a very, very good rebounder. And I think that is one thing that is appealing because a guy who has the ability to rebound and run your fast break if you are going to be a transition team or hope to be that, that has strong appeal. Obviously, his shooting is suspect. Can he get better as a shooter? We shall see. I mean, usually guys who become better shooters, like a Michael Jordan, is because they are unique in the amount of time and their desire to become, a really good outside shooter. So there are plenty of guys who come in without a jump shot who I don't see have gotten that much better. The two examples I use are Evan Turner and Michael Carter-Williams. They weren't good shooters when they came in, and they're still not great outside shooters. So that would concern me a little bit, but if you like enough about the rest of his game, I can understand, why you go in that direction. I mean, I also believe Brandon Ingram is going to be a really, really good NBA player, and I know the leanness of him, might scare some people off because he's just so skinny right now, but he's, I believe, 18 years old. I don't even think he's turned 19 yet. So I don't think either team's going to be unhappy with what they end up with, at least not immediately. We'll see who becomes a better player.
And I know a minute ago when you were talking about draft night and options that were out there, one of the words you used was internationally, which leads me to ask you about Dario Saric. I think Coach Brown is over there and Colangelo is over there trying to at least get a read on what his plans are. What do you think is going to happen with Dario Saric?
Well, I'll see. I'll be interested to see what they say when they come back. For me personally, just from talking to some people, the one reason he would come over is kind of out of a loyalty standpoint because he said this was the year that he was going to come over. Now, whether that is in his best interest, my loyalty might have to change because of financially, it does not seem like a smart move for him to do it. But we'll see. I mean, I've also seen, his numbers, and it's hard for me to gauge the international game because I know they sometimes don't play players the same kind of minutes you would maybe see a guy over here. But his numbers go up and down. I mean, they're playing in the finals over there right now. One game, I read the whole recap, and his name wasn't even mentioned in the recap that put them in the finals. So clearly that wasn't a game that he played particularly well. And the game the other day, I mean, he had 8 points. That's nice, but it doesn't wow me when you're in the Turkish finals with those kind of numbers. So I'll be interested to see what kind of player he is when he does get here. Again, personally, if I had people surrounding me, I would wait one more year and put yourself in a really good, because you're not hurting yourself by staying over there.
Yeah.
And the minute you play in the NBA, then we'll get to see who you are. I mean, a lot of people think he'd be a guy who comes off the bench anyhow. So I think I would try to financially do the best I can before I started playing in the NBA.
Yeah, especially on this team where he's 6'9", and Coach Brown has kind of looked at him as a stretch kind of versatile 4-man, 3, some kind of hybrid in there. And on this team, you wonder, where that fits. He's averaged about 12 points and 6 rebounds for his Turkish team. Shot 50% from the field, 40% from 3, and he's going to be an interesting thing we'll keep an eye on there. Now, Dee, the other interesting guy, of course, is Embiid, and it seems like every time you hear about him in the last month or so, it has all been positive. Are you starting to feel positive about Joel Embiid?
Well, I don't think I would ever say that I wasn't positive. And when you say everything's positive, I don't think a whole lot has changed in what he's able to do. I mean, I think the amount of, whether it's weight or the amount of, his running or, I mean, he's still not playing basketball. That's just the truth of the matter. He plays one-on-one, meaning not even with a real body against them, in a gym. So until somebody tells me that he plays 3-on-3, I'm glad he still feels good. I'm glad that there's no setbacks, but I would temper my enthusiasm until somebody tells me he's actually playing basketball.
And it doesn't look like he'll play in the summer, so we won't be able to really. He won't play in the summer at all, right? He won't play in the
summer league, yeah. And I would say he will have a cautious start to his training camp, which I understand reasons for that. So while I say there is a positiveness, and I can't wait till the kid is healthy, unrestricted in terms of how he can play, when he plays, but I think that day is further away than many of us would like to feel. For him to come out and be a 30-minute guy any part of this calendar year, I just don't see that.
Well, he seems optimistic anyway, right? I mean, he's tweeting and Instagramming away.
I mean, I totally understand that. And yes, he's always in the gym and he's around. And I think there's a positiveness to just the whole the group right now. Brian Colangelo coming in, landing that number 1 overall pick in the lottery was certainly key. And the feeling that, this is no longer a building, meaning this now has to take off and that, it's going to be real. I think that's the positiveness. And I think you see him, you see Robert Covington, I've seen Ish. There's guys that are in the gym regularly over there, which is a positive, I think.
Dei Lynam's with us, CSN Philly, Comcast Sportsnet. The Sixers own the first pick in the draft, and with owning the first pick in the draft, there's excitement around that. But, Dee, there's also, it sounds like, excitement around the fact that they have the ability to take a lot of calls, as we kind of indicated. And one of the rumored deals out there is a Noel Teague discussion. Yeah. I don't know how true they are or how realistic, but do you feel comfortable if those two guys were the lead names in a switch of teams, Teague and Noel?
Do I like the concept of switching one for the other?
Yeah. Do you like that flip-flop there? If you're Philadelphia, getting Teague back and giving them Noel.
Well, I've been on board. I'm a huge Nerlens Noel fan because I just think that he has a unique skill set in terms of his protecting the rim, his ability to switch off and be able to guard and pick and roll. You're not going to get hurt with him guarding a point guard. So I personally don't think he hurts you offensively as much as other people would like to say. Is he a back-to-the-basket guy like Okafor? No. Is he going to get you, can I please say that Okafor is not a 20-10 guy yet? He only had double-figure rebounds 12 times this year, but everybody likes to say he's a 20-10 guy. I like his offense, but I think this is a defensive league. So do you need a point guard? Absolutely. Teague, he's going to be 28 years old. Is that the right age? I don't know. He's certainly not the top-tier point guards in this league, but I think he's very, very solid, and I think he's reliable and pretty consistent. I know some would point to the playoffs and say not so much, but I don't think they played well as a team, so I'm not going to put it just on him.
Dei Lynam with us, and Dei, news came out today that Jahlil Okafor and Jeremy Grant are among the 25 players that have been chosen for the USA men's select team. That's announced today by USA Basketball. Now, this isn't the national team. This is the select team, but how can that help those guys being chosen for that team?
Oh, I think it's huge. First of all, I like that this has actually become a process that really came about when the elder Colangelo took over USA Basketball, and it's part of, they like to get young guys into the whole USA Basketball, I don't want to call it family, if you will, but there's a training to it. There's a process to it. Like if you look, Okafor was part of the junior USA Basketball. He was part of the Nike Summit. And so this is kind of a natural progression for him. But I think it's huge. They will. I've been out there when I don't remember the first Sixer that I saw. I want to say Drew Holiday maybe. But anyhow, I've been out there, and they will play against the real team and help them prepare for Rio. That's what their job is to do.
Yeah.
So you're going to play against some of the best in the world, for those days, and I think that can only help your own game, help you bring back some stuff to your team in terms of leadership and kind of just what that collective group is like for those days leading up. And I mean, that select team it's a big responsibility to try to get the other guys ready to go over to the Olympics because they haven't been together much because they're playing their own, in their own games for their own team. So that weekend is pretty significant.
Dei Lynam's with us. Dei, Okafor, obviously his name, Noel's name. Do you think they have a preference of which of the two they'd rather keep if they end up moving one? Do they have a preference of which guy, or will they just take the best deal if there's one presented to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that they certainly won't tell you if they have a preference, but I think they must have something in their head because it is really about style of play. And, you can't play all three of these guys. And I think that let's just take Embiid out of the situation because I think moving either Nerlens or Okafor does not have to be contingent on Embiid being healthy or not healthy. I think moving forward, that you can't play those two together, period. Leave Embiid out of the discussion. And they tried it with Nerlens at the 4, and they tried it with Okafor at the 4, and it just doesn't work. They are both 5. If you're not going to be able to, if you think those are both starters in this league, you're not going to pay them the money that you have to when one guy is going to have to back up the other. So, but it is a big difference of who you move in terms of philosophy. And I don't think it's a knock to say if, in fact, they were interested in moving Okafor, like why, it's not giving up on the guy. It's trying to decide. I think you've heard Brett say it a number of times. They now have to be responsible about positions, filling positions, because that's how you start to build a team. So if they move Okafor, it's because they're going to just understand that the defensive presence of Nerlens is going to be what they're going to need at the 5 spot. If they stick with Okafor and they can get something significant for Nerlens, then they will make up defensively at some other position because that is not his strength right now. And I don't think he's ever going to be that guy defensively.
That being said, then, you mentioned what Coach Brown has said, and he has said that, they got to start getting the right fits instead of just, the best player kind of. But free agency, do you think there is a guy that makes sense then for them to go target in this year's class? Obviously the bar with some of these high guys, the Durants and the DeRozans. A lot of people mention DeRozan because he was drafted by Toronto and Colangelo, but I don't know if he's in the range. But Conley, are they too high for them, and do you think that there are other good fits, if not someone in that level?
Well, I mean, the high-end guys are the ones that, like, if you could get a Conley, would you want to do that? I mean, you do that in a second, but I don't think you have the capability of if you do, then the power of the Colangelos being in charge speaks volumes for people thinking change is coming quicker. I would have to look at some of the other, because what happens is people throw out names. Some of those guys are restricted, and you'd have to, with everybody having to spend more money this summer, the chances are those restricted guys are probably going to get overpaid by their own team and not have to go anywhere. I mean, you have to go out, and you need a shooting guard unless you think Robert Covington is your guy. You need a point guard, and that guard is not on your roster right now. And that's the other thing with Simmons. I still think you need a point guard if you take Simmons in the draft, because I'm not sure, certainly not out of the gate, can he run your offense for you? And if he does, there's going to be some long nights, because I think the jump to run an offense at the NBA level, when it is not your true position, I mean, I understand has very, very good passing skills, but he's not a point guard. So I think you still have to go out and get a point guard for this team.
Well, Dee, the last time the Sixers had the overall pick, the number one pick, it's a guy who's it's his 41st birthday today, right? Allen Iverson, and I saw that you posted that. Happy birthday, AI, 41 years old. What Allen Iverson stories can you tell Mike and I that we haven't heard, or what about his character can you tell us we don't already know?
Oh, my. Now, come on, Pete. I can't share those kind of things on the radio. This is a family channel, isn't it?
The book. Save it for the book.
No, you know what? I have a couple. Let's see. Probably, one of my favorites was when the Sixers used to do, to kick off the season, maybe that week training camp's over, the real deal hasn't started, you probably played all your preseason games, and they would go around to different parts of the city, up to 30th Street Station. I remember one year Elton Brand was in Rittenhouse Square. Anyhow, it is mandatory, but believe me when I say they don't love having to do it. And certainly Al was not one for loving to have to be somewhere that was not the basketball court. So they figured, okay, the best thing they could do, one of his favorite fast food places was Taco Bell. So I followed him, and I went with Alan, and Alan was the person who was taking your order for drive-through. Okay. And so people would order their food, and they would come around, and there would be Iverson handing them their bags and their soft drinks through the window. I mean, to see those people's faces, it was hysterical.
Chalupa, Gordito. Yes, here's your chalupa. Here's your Gordito.
Dee, if you could, though, could you tell us something about Allen now that in his post-playing careers? Because he seemed like he has matured a lot from the player, and then us being down here by Atlantic City, we've heard the nightmare stories from people in this area. Sure. In his second kind of career here, in whatever he's doing, I don't even know what he does day to day. I mean, but can you give us a little insight on that?
I think he's still trying to. I mean, I saw him probably, it's June now. I probably saw him the end of April. And I think that's part of it, is him trying to figure out what he wants to do now. And, he talks a lot about his family. And, he wasn't around a lot, obviously, as many players and athletes are when they're, in the prime of their career. So I think he's trying to figure out, balancing family, or just he always says, trying to be a better father. And I think, it's kind of honesty on his part of saying that wasn't his strength, and he'd like to, make it a better strength. I don't think coaching is his thing. He says he would, be good at it, but I can't see him. Aaron McKee, that's a job that is so all-consuming to be a coach, and certainly at the college level. So I don't know. I'll be interested in seeing him up at the Hall of Fame. And, I just like that the last couple times I've seen him, he seems like he's in a decent space in terms of his head. And I don't want to speak for him in terms of happiness, but he seems content. It would be the word that I would use.
Yeah, do you think there is a role, like if he's not a coach, I mean, is he not a broadcaster, or do you think there's a role for him somewhere in this game still?
It's interesting because one of the things he does do, and he's actually quite good at it, but he's much better in small settings than he is in big settings. And he will come and speak to, let's just say it's 10 season ticket holders and they're, whoever they're bringing to the game with them that night. And there's no, nobody sees it. They're in a room, a quiet room by themselves. It's like, let's just say the game's at 7. He'll do this at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and they can just, talk hoops, talk about his career. They ask questions, basketball stuff. And he's very, very good in that setting. So I wish he could, kind of translate that into something that's maybe a bigger role. But again, I don't know what he wants to do. So I know he is very creative. He's creative in 2 ways. He's a very, very good artist. I've seen stuff that he had drawn dating all the way back to his high school years. But he also does kind of film and, documentary kind of stuff. Now again, it's all about channeling his, his thoughts of things that he likes. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's the only person out there that's done playing the game that doesn't always know what's the next thing.
Sure.
I mean, I know it's been 5 years, but, and you can wake up and that time is flying by, and you say, where has the time gone?
Well, he's just 41. I'm not there yet, but quickly I'll be saying to myself, what do I want to do with the next part of my life?
Boo you, Mike Gill, for not being...
I'd like to see the little guy out on the golf course. I'd like to see if he could hit the little white ball.
I got a foursome. Dei Lynam, Allen Iverson, Pete Thompson, Mike Gill. How's that foursome? We can go.
Wouldn't that be a good one?
Let's do it.
Something tells me he would tell me oh, come on, D, that little white ball is boring.
Did you see Charles Barkley try to hit the baseball yesterday at Citizens Bank Park?
I did. Yeah. I absolutely did. He looks good, by the way.
Charles looks great.
Yeah.
But his baseball swing, stick to analyzing.
Yeah, Dei Lynam, we appreciate
yeah. His baseball swing has probably been lost like his golf swing.
Ooh,
I mean, his
both
golf
ugly.
swing.
Both ugly.
I know. You know what? He once was a decent golfer, and he's never been able to get that back, I don't think.
Nope, that swing is, they made a television show about how bad his swing was. Dei Lynam, Comcast Sportsnet, Philadelphia. And, of course, we always appreciate the time, Dee. Thanks so much.
We loved it, Dee. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Bye. Have a good one.